All right. Welcome and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the public safety community. I am Jason Karp, your host on PSN News of the Week on the PSN at Home Network. Boom, boom, boom. Your highlight of the week. Boom, the best in public safety news coming right at you in 10 minutes or so. Boom, 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 boom. So let's get to it. I want to congratulate the formal appointment of Chief Matt Tobia to the Harrisonburg, Virginia Fire Department. Chief Tobia was formerly the deputy chief, and I knew him when he was assistant chief and in charge of volunteer services and support services here in Loudoun County, Virginia. He spent like 22 years with Anne Arundel County. He is a top-notch guy, a great leader, and now formally appointed head of Harrisonburg, Virginia Fire. Shout out, congratulations on the appointment. Wish you only the best, and Harrisonburg's in great hands. What else is going on? COVID. Boom, boom, boom. We got to talk about COVID because we have to talk about COVID because COVID is everywhere. CDC has issued new mask guidelines. One of the guidelines, no one-way valves. Boom. You see these masks, you see the little one-way valve on it, and what that means is that air is being expressed, even though the user may be protected, it's not protecting other third parties. And so folks have known this. Now the CDC has issued formal guidance. We're getting rid of the one-way valves, which makes sense because we're all trying to protect each other. That's how it works. I protect you, you protect me, she protects him, he protects her, and we're all protected. COVID, out of here. So new guidance, listen up. Some very interesting news and great news. Shout out to San Francisco Fire Department. Less than 0.01% of fire department personnel have tested positive for antibodies for COVID, despite over half of the nearly 1,223 members having been likely or actually exposed to COVID positive patients, and in some cases more than once. So this is actually excellent news, and I think it needs to be highlighted. And kudos to San Francisco for what they've done. I think is a combination of listening to the guidelines regarding social distancing and the lockdowns when that took place, and then just very responsible and aggressive and effective procedures put in by the department in terms of PPE, social distancing, situational awareness, and making sure that they're protecting their people. And it shows. I mean, you're talking about literally 3 out of over 1,200 personnel had been shown to have been exposed. This is the only antibody study of first responders, not hospital workers, but frontline workers who are not hospital and doctor workers, but true, mobile public safety. So very exciting, and super kudos to San Francisco for what they did there. I think that's a good lesson for everyone that this stuff works. So masks, no one-way valves, PPE responsibility, social distancing, listen to the rules and guidelines, and then keep your people safe when you're doing your jobs. It seems pretty simple to me. Boom. What else is going on? Louisville. Let's moving on to some of the policing reforms going on. So Louisville has banned public protests in light of 12 arrests and some violent clashes over this past weekend. And for 75 days, I think there's been public protests going out in the streets. And so they've taken some pretty drastic action. So let's just pause for a second. Banning public protests. I'm just going to put it out there. Is that the answer? My personal opinion is, well, I don't have enough information to know really what's going on there, but that doesn't sound right. Sounds like there is more mediation and other answers and solutions to achieve the outcome that we desire. And the outcome is to keep police safe, keep public safety safe, keep the community safe, keep property safe. Get it? We're all on board with that. But unilaterally taking away a public's right to publicly protest, that's a big deal. That is guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States of America, people. And there is no higher legal authority than the Constitution of the United States. Not the Supreme Court, not the president. It is the highest law of the land. So if we're going to strip people of their rights that are given to them under the Constitution, we need to do it in a responsible way, and we need to make sure it is the only limited way to achieve the outcome. And I got to tell you, there's probably other ways to achieve the outcome in Louisville. So keeping an eye on this one to see what happens there. But this may have the opposite effect because it's going to, quite frankly, tick a lot of people off. And this could lead to more aggression and more conflict, which is the exact opposite of what we're trying to accomplish here. So just something to think about. Again, you've heard my Kumbaya speech now. If you've watched any of my shows in the last couple of weeks, you know that public safety, the community, and local governments have to get together on these issues. And they have to come to agreement on rational and reasonable, constructive ways forward. Boom. That's it. Soapbox. More stuff going on with peace. Defunding. Still a lot of defunding and stuff going on. Out in Austin, Texas, we have seen a huge exodus of officers from the force over the last several years. In fact, the average number of officers cadets leaving each month has more than doubled since 2017 and increased by nearly 34% through mid-June of this year compared to last year. That's huge. And the reasons? Budget cuts. Budgetary constraints, not having the resources to do their jobs. I get it. That's concern. And this is the whole defunding thing. I mean, this is the balance. You can't just say we're eliminating budgets or cutting budgets. What is the outcome we need to, achieve? And then let's get together and figure out the right way to do this. We can't just have exodus of potentially good officers. I mean, look at what happened in Seattle yesterday with Chief Best. And for those who don't know, Chief Carmen Best resigned because of major budget cuts by the city council, requiring massive layoffs, concern over her force, concern that it might inordinately impact people of color. And here you've got, one of the top leaders in the police area, a person of color, who is heavily engaged in community policing and reaching out to the community and building bridges, forced to really have to take a stand here because of these budget cuts. And to me, that's not the right outcome. I can't imagine that's anybody's right outcome, is that's what we want to see. So this continues to be a concern. I applaud that folks are taking action and they're addressing the issues, but, did I say but? We've got to think through the outcomes and work with our leaders. We can't thrust this on them and say, boom, here's what you got. Here's your lot in life. Engage them in the conversations. Don't be afraid to do that. Have the difficult conversation. That's what we got to do. That's what we do as responsible people and as governors, and folks governing our country and governing our localities. It's what you got to do. Step up, be responsible, take responsibility, and do the right thing. And boom, that's it. You heard it from me. I mean, it is what it is. More interesting news: Aurora, Colorado, is pushing to ban public funding for any group who lobby against police reform. So anybody who's against police reform, Aurora, Colorado is suggesting that they get no local public funding. And this is clearly targeting nationwide police organizations, local police organizations, IACP, and others, who obviously are concerned about some of the massive changes going on and are lobbying at both federal and state efforts. This is an interesting one. I don't know that this is going to pass, but that seems pretty aggressive as well. Again, this gets to the Constitution. right? Whether it's right or whether it's wrong, what side of the fence you're on, these folks have a right to lobby and to put their opinions forward. And the policing agencies and the policing trade associations have a right to come forward and give their opinion as to how they think this should be resolved. And, being penalized for that, to me, is problematic. So you got on each side of the spectrum here, you got one jurisdiction, Louisville, looking to penalize community residents and citizens. And in this case, in Colorado, you're potentially penalizing organizations made up predominantly of policing professionals who are looking to exercise their rights and to push forward their agendas that they believe are rational. Again, to me, it's about having to come together, transparency and communication. That will solve this. Really will. Always does, right? Picking up the phone is better than sending an email or texting. For us old schoolers, are just Gen Xers. I'm a Gen Xer, for the boomers, right? This is what we did. We talked on the phone. We talked in person. We got stuff done, right? So it's the same thing here. We got to have face-to-face conversations. We got to solve these issues. We can't just be stripping more of our constitutional rights. It's going to have the opposite effect. All right. I said I wasn't going to go on my soapbox. I got back on my soapbox. Stepping off the soapbox again. Okay. Let's talk tech. AT&T. They measured FirstNet using its own core network faster than the general commercial AT&T wireless network. Fantastic. That's great news for public safety. That's what it should be. That's what we envisioned when I was at FirstNet, that this network would be unthrottled, would be the fastest, the most secure, and ensure priority preemption so that first responders always could get through and always could get the data they needed through. This data proves it. I love it. Fantastic. That's exactly what's intended. It should be faster. It should be better. There's its own separate public safety core, separate from the commercial core, that is dedicated to first responders. Love it. I can't tell you how I think that's great. FirstNet, as you know, is serving over 13,000 agencies, 1.5 million subscribers. It's great to see this. The other anecdotal data, which is really interesting, is we're seeing public safety buying more than one device, and so it's not one device per officer. And anybody who saw me or TJ Kennedy, my partner, when we were at FirstNet and speaking publicly, we said this is going to happen, that you're going to have multiple connections per user. And we're seeing that. So in this case, you're seeing a smartphone, you're seeing a tablet, and then a lot of these public safety personnel are getting phones for their family members who are part and parcel of the public safety community. So that's really interesting. The other thing is who falls into the category of public safety. I mean, we got traditional fire, EMS, and police, but now we also have frontline workers, we have doctors, we have nurses, and they qualify for FirstNet. So we're seeing an expanded use of those connections. And given that the network has tremendous capacity and that it's got a super fast core and priority and preemption, we know that all of these folks are always going to be able to get through. So this is huge news. It's super exciting. And I know that they're also moving now to 5G, and that's going to be layer on top of it. We're going to hear more and more about that as that gets rolled out. So great stuff. Also in tech news, new association, the Public Safety Spectrum Alliance, made up of public safety professionals, have come together and made an announcement this week that they are advocating for the protection of 4.9 gigahertz spectrum. I know this is exciting stuff, right? But this is important. 4.9 gigahertz spectrum, which is currently licensed to public safety by the FCC. And they want to protect that and make sure that that is always dedicated to public safety. And the issue you've got is the FCC has recently released notices of proposed rulemaking about potentially allowing that spectrum to be used for commercial or other use in addition to public safety use. This group, the PSSA, led by Chief Jeff Johnson and others like Chief Chris Moore and Kevin McGinnis, and others, and their spokesperson, Kim Zagaris, Chief Zagaris as well, is that this spectrum needs to be dedicated to public safety, period, end of story. So what they want to do is they want to allocate it to the FirstNet Authority. Let the FirstNet Authority, who now has a history of protecting technology for public safety, to manage this 4.9 spectrum, similar to what they've done with FirstNet and Band 14, and allocate some of it for 5G, potentially augment some of the FirstNet network, and ensure that current users of 4.9 within public safety are not impacted and continue to use it. So interesting development. I think this is good for the public safety community, and something to keep our eye on. You can go to the Public Safety Broadband Technology Alliance website, the PSBTA, that has helped helped establish the PSSA with this group of public safety professionals, and you can get more information as well as potentially advocate on their behalf. So something to be aware of. Airgain has announced that its new Airgain Connect antenna will be available later this year. And what makes this very exciting is this will be the first antenna that incorporates HPUE, that's high-powered user equipment. And what HPUE is, it effectively allows wireless devices to transmit at 6 times the power of normal wireless mobile phones and mobile equipment. And this is only available on Band 14 and FirstNet. So for when using FirstNet, you can transmit at 6 times the power. What does that do? It significantly expands coverage. Could be 2 to 3 times the coverage range of a single cell tower. So think about what that does in terms of filling the gaps, and especially out in rural coverage where you may not have the density of cell towers, but you've got one cell tower, and if that cell tower traveled, covered 10 or 15 miles, now it's going to cover 30 or 50 miles. That's huge. That is huge. So that is a game changer, my friends, and that is super exciting to hear that Airgain is working with Assured Wireless Corporation that's developed the technology, and it's the vendor who's providing this. We're also working with AT&T. We envisioned these kinds of things when FirstNet came out, but seeing it come to fruition is huge. It's going to have a major, major impact on the ability of public safety to communicate, particularly in what has traditionally been hard to communicate areas. So kudos to Airgain and to Assured Wireless. Very exciting. Now let's move to the segment of crazy, impactful stories that I call PSN Wow. Like, what the heck is going on of the week? So we got some interesting stories. If you listen to my program, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, I talked about 2 women who decided to try to steal ambulances and go on a joyride. COVID's making people crazy, and they're jumping in the cabs. Ambulances off, lights and sirens, boom. I'm like, all right, I get it. I did crazy stuff as a kid. That could be fun, right? Okay. Where are we? We're in Mississippi, northeast Mississippi, Tupelo. A woman jumped into the cab of an ambulance while the paramedics were assisting the patient, tried to drive off. The paramedic was able to turn off pull the keys out of the cab, so she couldn't get anywhere. So what does she do? She jumps out of the cab and then attacks the paramedic with a machete. Okay, this takes it to a whole new level. Because I'm not just, hey, there's just a woman walking around saying, ooh, crime of opportunity. I'm going to go grab me an ambulance and go for a joyride. I'm carrying around my, Crocodile Dundee machete here just in case. Who knows what I'm going to come up against. Now, thank goodness, nobody was hurt. The patient was taken to the hospital, and this crazy person was arrested, as she should be. Her and her machete are currently in custody. Nuts. Anyway, talking about weapons, here's a crazy story. Confiscations of handguns at airports are up 3 times over last year. 3 times. That is craziness. What is going on with people bringing handguns on airplanes? And you know what? 80% of them loaded. I got to tell you, I don't want someone bringing a loaded handgun on my airplane if they're not law enforcement or, a federal marshal, air marshal. We don't need excess handguns sitting around, whether they're in the cabin or under the cabin, in case, God forbid, something happens. What do we need guns on airplanes for? This is nuts. Interesting. 3 of the top 5 airports for confiscations, all in Texas. So you got Dallas-Fort Worth is actually ranked 2nd I think had 13 confiscations, and then you've got Houston's Bush Airport, and you've got the Love Field are tied for 5th, each with 9 confiscations each so far. So at least people in Texas apparently are bringing handguns or trying to bring handguns onto airplanes. This is a wow story to me because it's just, I don't get it. I don't see it. I don't get it. This is a time for de-escalation. I understand that we have more guns out there than ever before. There's more applications for guns throughout this whole COVID pandemic. You know, okay, but come on, let's hey, you know what I'm saying here? Let's be reasonable here. Nobody wants guns sitting on a plane, you know, when they're trying to get somewhere, especially in the middle of the pandemic where they're already freaked out about, you know, what's going to happen and who they're in contact with. So anyway, ending on a good note, a positive note. You know, that's what I like to do. Even the PSN WOW stories, I would like to congratulate from Oaks Corner, New York, Deputy Chief Zachary Ray and EMS Captain Danielle Ray, who got married in July. And at 10:10 a.m., I'm sorry, 10:55 a.m., the day of their wedding, they got called to a 2-alarm blaze. Both of them ultimately went off. Their wedding was going to be at 4 p.m. Off they went. They got the situation under control, tended to who they needed to tend to. They got reinforcements at 1 p.m., got home, showered, dressed, looking beautiful, got to the wedding on time, boom, married. I love it. I love it. It's dedication. It shows you what public safety is all about. It shows you what this profession is all about, putting others ahead of yourself. That's what we all need to be doing today. Kudos to the Ray family and to Oaks Corner, New York, for obviously instilling that kind of ethics, integrity, and call to action in their people. We all need to do that, and I think that's fabulous. So on that note, I am Jason Karp, Esquire, from the Public Safety Network, signing off from PSN Now News of the Week. I am out of here. Peace. See you next time.